When people ask you what happened here, tell them the North remembers. Tell them winter came for House Frey.
If we don't win this fight, then that is the fate of every person in the world.
This isn't about noble houses. This is about the living and the dead.
And I intend to stay amongst the living.
And you have compassion.
Compassion, yes. I killed my lover with my bare hands. I shot my own father with a crossbow.
I never said you were perfect.
Shall we begin?
Hey, the much ballyhooed, highly touted Game of Thrones podcast called Men of the North is underway. My name is Paul Allen, host of the 9 to Noon show at FM 100.3 KFAN. The producer of said show is Eric Nordquist. He's part of the Men of the North podcast. Our Thrones techie is Aaron Gleeman. He is a Thrones techie by night and editor-in-chief at Baseball Prospectus by day. And Paul Charchian from fanball.com. He also joins us for Men of the North, this Game of Thrones podcast. The season 8 with Game of Thrones, Sunday, 8 o'clock Central, HBO. How excited are you guys for the unveiling of a new season?
I'm super excited. Can't wait. I've been counting this down for at least, really like a year, but it's gotten to a fever pitch for me in the last month, and now that we're down to days, can't wait.
Yeah.
I'm in total media blackout. I don't know about you guys. I'm not looking at fan theories.
Really?
I'm not dissecting trailers. I don't want any of that. I want to be surprised by everything that's going to unfold.
Techie?
See, I've avoided, I don't want to have anything spoiled, but I feel like they have such a tight wraps on everything at this point.
Yeah.
Like they've put some even like fake shooting schedules out there in the world. But I have I've read up on every crackpot theory on like Reddit or every blog. But yeah, I've tried to avoid spoilers, but I want to know basically what are people who are obsessed with, because I'm obsessed with it, but there's a whole nother level of obsession out there.
Right.
I want to know what have they been obsessed about for the last year?
Yeah.
And there's so many theories, it's very difficult to even keep them straight.
Nordo and I look at everything so we can steal takes.
Correct. Yeah, it's all about trying to find as many opinions that we can use as our own at later times.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, man, it's been 18 months or better since the last season came out.
Yeah.
I finished about 2.5 weeks ago. I rewatched the whole series. On the Ultimate Rube, I got all the new nuggets and bits from watching it again, and Sunday can't come soon enough, guys.
Okay, with the inaugural edition of Men of the North, this Game of Thrones podcast, what we are going to do during the course of the show, we are going to analyze the top 11 characters left alive and analyze their chances to assume the Iron Throne. We also are going to play a fantasy game at the end involving each show's Season 8 Game of Thrones, and we have some free-flowing scenario conversation into which we will dive nearing the end of the podcast. But first, Eric Nordquist has assigned each of us characters from Game of Thrones.
Oh, God.
In other words, he takes Paul Charchian, the Thrones techie Aaron Gleeman, yours truly Paul Allen, and himself, and who he thinks we would most likely be were we in Game of Thrones. Take it away.
Yeah, and much like in Game of Thrones, you got to have thick skin to survive.
Yeah.
All right.
Easy for him to say as he's doling out all of our personas.
This will be good.
I'm gonna start with Aaron Gleeman.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Aaron Gleeman, and we know him, Twins Techie, weekly guest 9 to Noon, Gleeman and the Geek, the podcast, the Tap Tours, and all of that.
At Aaron Gleeman via Twitter.
This character enjoys reading, learning, and knowing.
Yeah, this is what
He appears to care deeply for others, various plights, someone that should be listened to and respected. However, he is never listened to and rarely respected.
Brilliant.
His mother really loves him.
His father doesn't.
He has fallen in love with a girl and has accepted the baggage of a child.
Wow.
Or in this case, a cat.
Boy, this is getting too yeah.
Can we guess?
He's absolutely zero help in physical altercations, but may luck his way into killing a White Walker. Overall, he's an underestimated survivor. Who am I speaking of?
It's obvious.
It was obvious. Samuel Tarly?
Yes, absolutely.
That's brilliant.
He's Samuel Tarly.
When I heard that he was going to do this, that immediately came to mind. And it's not the most flattering, but I do feel like it's basically, I'm not going to help you in a fight.
Yeah.
But if you let me go off alone with some data and information, I could maybe come back with an idea that could help others in a fight.
Well done, Nordo.
Now, in fairness of the four of us, he was the most easy. And similarly, it was one of the first people I thought of as well, Samuel Tarly. Let's go to Charch.
By the way, as a side note, many people think that he is George R.R. Martin in this world, right?
Yeah.
And yes, that's right.
George is doing okay.
That's
Aaron,
true.
I mean, George,
by the way,
he's got a babe and a kid.
He's doing so well, George R. R. Martin, that he's like, I don't even need to bother writing the rest of these.
That's right.
Yeah.
He saved Jorah. I mean, you're a very caring person. To Paul Charchian. He's entrepreneurial, so Charch could very likely be the Littlefinger of Westeros, profiting from brothels and information.
Yes.
He has the same hair as Brienne of Tarth. He's similar to Oberyn Martell. I'm not sure about having 8 bastard children, but certainly enjoys unique sexual appetites. Could be the male version of Melisandre because he's probably into some weird magic shit. Overall, he offers nobility, intelligence, strategy, sophistication, and while many close to him may have tried to kill him, he's a tremendous diplomatic resource.
Yeah. I have a guess. You have a guess?
I do.
Go.
I think he has pegged me as Tyrion.
Tyrion Lannister.
Ding, 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 ding.
That's good.
Your thoughts? I think it's a compliment.
Yeah, I'd say
it's one of the most popular guys in the history of the show.
I started out with the jabs, but then I put you on an important part of the puzzle.
And you're 4'11", so therefore you are diminutive like him. This ought to be good.
I like the fact. I'll say this: if I got to be Tyrion,
I'm going to be the freaking Night King. Watch.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I do work with you every day, and there is some resentment here. But let's get through it. PA.
Yeah.
Difficult to deal with sometimes.
Great.
Very much like King Joffrey, we see what happens when a child is given a very high-level job. But inside, there's a level of morality and faith guiding this person, conflicting with urges and negativity around him.
Am I Jon Snow?
He leads people. If he had a smoking sister under the right circumstances, I wouldn't put it past him.
You bastard. I know who this is.
As punishment for assaulting the meaty sides of men for many years, his good hand has been taken from him.
Oh, I wish we could do that.
But he quickly learns to adapt.
That's great.
Who am I talking about?
I'm Jaime Lannister.
Yes, you are.
I'm Jaime Lannister. Housing my sister, undoubtedly, you bitch. All right, what about you?
All right, finally. Like the Hound.
Yeah, great. You're going to be Jon Snow, the coolest guy in the history of the show.
No, I think I'm fairly accurate here. We'll see.
All right.
Like the Hound, I'm one of the ugliest people in the group.
Oh, come on.
Generally very unapproachable.
He's hot pie.
Like Bran, I'd like to lead, but am a second-hand man, a sellsword, drinking, whoring, and keeping Jaime Lannister from being killed.
You're the cool-ass guy. I love him. I can't remember his name.
Like Varys, I have a ton of information in my brain. People freely share it with me because I'm trustworthy, but I'm married, so I might as well have had my crank cut off anyway.
I thought you were part of the ranks of the Unsullied because you lack a penis.
So overall, I'm pegging myself as Davos Seaworth.
That's right. I figured it out at the end.
Okay.
Not much family or prestige because
Sir Davos.
A former smuggler born in the poorest area of North Mankato, Minnesota.
Got you.
Now thrust into a situation where I'm the fight that I believe I'm on the right side of.
Well
Probably will die by the sword soon.
Well done. Thrones Covenant clap for the way he put that together, please. Men of the North podcast, Game of Thrones, Episode 1, Season 8, Sunday, 8 o'clock Central, HBO. Here are the top 11 characters left alive. We will analyze not only their lots in life, but maybe assess their chances to last the entire season and assume the Iron Throne. Charch, we begin with Jon Snow.
Jon Snow met in Season 7, met up with Daenerys in Dragonstone, refused to bend the knee, but the two end up growing close. Jon decides to bring his White Walker, that Jon decides to bring a White Walker to Cersei will convince her to join their efforts, which is moronic, and it's the worst major plot point in the history of the show.
Why?
But why?
It got her over the hump to know that the Whites live.
It doesn't matter. She doesn't care. She does not care.
And then she lied to
immediately
him.
is using it as a device to double-cross them.
And they lost 1/3 of the dragon.
Yeah, they lost a third of the dragons doing it. Right. Yeah, great point. Goes north of the wall, nearly dies. The dragons teleport to the battle scene, all that stuff. He's at the end. He doesn't know he is the nephew of Daenerys, and that's going to be a bit of an issue as this goes on a little bit. But
incest has been in vogue the entire show.
Incest is in play at all times.
The acceptable level of incest was established very early on in the show, as several levels above where they're at. So.
Actually, here's what I'll say, though, because they're both protagonists. I mean, these are the positive ones of this entire show. And throughout, whether it was Cersei and Jaime trying to hide it, or mitigate it. Tywin, the dad, before he's killed by Tyrion, he made it clear that was an L. That this whole thing with them banging and having kids, that's awful.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it would be, ultimately maybe conceiving a child, once that comes into play, I think they would maybe be more apt to drift away from that.
Yeah. But is Khaleesi for sure a protagonist?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I mean, maybe something develops during the season where she becomes Cersei power hungry.
It could be.
And does anything she can to assume that throne.
Right, because they did. Because I just rewatched the last 3 or 4, the last couple of nights to prep for this. And they definitely set it up where, if not for Tyrion, she was just going to go burn the whole place down, basically.
Oh, yeah.
So he got her to hold back on that. And she thinks it's going to go well. It's not, we know, because they're going to get double-crossed by Cersei.
Right.
But once she senses that, maybe she just goes back to her, why don't we just burn it all down? In which case, is she still a protagonist?
She's got that in her, but
Right.
they've worked very hard to establish, and we should just transition at this point to her. They've worked very hard to establish her as a good person, right? Freeing slaves at every turn. That we've watched her go from being abused by her brother, and we assumed that she was going to be meek and cowardly, and she was sold to just really be a concubine.
Yep.
And now look at what she's transformed into. I think virtually everybody's rooting for her. So I think she's certainly a protagonist.
By the way, a small bit though, how cool is it when people die in the show, whether they're being pushed through this magical hole into nothingness in the Vale, or Khaleesi's brother gets this gold, melted gold all over his face.
That's a rough way to go.
A crown, a golden crown for you.
Screw a gun or a knife.
Next, Tyrion Lannister. Charch?
Tyrion conspires with Ser Davos to be smuggled into King's Landing for a secret truce meeting with Jaime, but he's being double-crossed by Cersei because that's all Cersei knows how to do. I didn't think this was a particularly strong season for him in terms of doing a lot of things, but he's a survivor, and he has tried to bring some humanity to Cersei. Yeah, I think he was always, in my mind, he was always the least likely main character to die for the whole show.
Yeah.
And I think that still, to a degree, holds up now, where he's somebody that could end up surviving.
I also feel like with the double cross aspect, they've set him up in such a way that he not only does he know stuff, but he's very tricky. Mm-hmm. And so I can't see any scenario where Cersei double crossing him comes as an actual surprise to him. I have to imagine, even if he thinks it's a 51% chance that she'll go along with him, that 49% chance he has several options that he could fall back on, because otherwise just everything they've established about him as a character, as like a guy you want planning things, would go out the window.
Now, he's never been portrayed as regal. Does anybody here think he finishes on the throne?
Not sure.
Absolutely zero. For me, 0%.
But he always has surrounded himself by the right people. I mean, he's advising Daenerys. She has 2 dragons. Jaime is his brother. He's tough. Who's the rogue character, Bran?
Bran.
Yeah. He has history with Bran.
History with Jon Snow.
And history with Jon Snow.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, he definitely surrounds himself with the right people. Sansa Stark, next.
They've set Sansa Stark up as, she's gone from being somebody who's had these series of horrifying husbands, all these horrible things to her. Well, now she's been elevated all the way up to Lady of Winterfell, and she's ruling so well. There are people that think she should be the Queen of the North, and that Jon shouldn't. So the character or development they've given Sansa is such that they are clearly setting her up for the prospect of ruling all of Westeros.
Yep.
Right? So, I mean, the character progression suggests that she's somebody who could end up on the Iron Throne. I think the Vegas odds have her as third best chance to be there. And I think, as you look at the development of the character, it makes sense. And you look at the way they've gone to all these pains to show her ruling successfully over Winterfell. I think it could happen. Your thoughts?
Well, so but that development took place really in season 7. I mean, she's been kicked over and dragged around throughout the entire series, and then suddenly she's empowered when Jon heads south to Dragonstone, and then Arya comes back.
Yeah.
And at first you think there's some tension there, some sibling negativity based on how they left things in season 1, but then suddenly this dynamic duo of sorts is slitting the throat of Littlefinger.
Yeah.
So I love Sansa as a person that could potentially be on the throne.
I think so.
And it's because now that strength that she has built with the empowerment, I mean, this was just like this massive roller coaster upswing for her.
Yeah.
So I'm all in on Sansa being around.
When we last saw Lord Baelish, he was getting his throat slashed by Arya.
Yep.
Yeah.
There, I know Charchian, Paul has stayed away from a lot of the .com whatever, but there is late steam into season 8 that Lord Baelish is still alive and is going to be a major factor in season 8.
And then I just rewatched that episode last night.
Yeah.
How?
He gone.
I don't know. Like, I realize they've sort of established that if you truly are not 100% sure
That's right.
or 200% sure that a character is dead, they can come back. And I guess all things are in play at that point, especially with the sort of fantasy aspect of it. But they certainly did not portray his death scene as ambiguous. It was, he's bleeding out basically from his neck.
Top 11 characters still alive in Game of Thrones. Their lots in life and maybe their chances to assume the Iron Throne at the end of Season 8, which concludes Game of Thrones. Next, Cersei Lannister.
She agrees to marry Euron Greyjoy in exchange for his fleet. He comes through with the fleet. Nobody thinks that she's ever going to make good on this promise to marry him, right? 0% chance that will actually end up happening. She ends up discovering that, or finding out that she's in all this debt. The Lannisters are in all this great debt. She sends Jaime off to go get the gold from the Tyrells, which he successfully does. Uses that to get in more debt, pay off the debt, and get another line of credit. So now she's got this big standing army, and ultimately is the ultimate bad guy. And then at the end of the season, she announces she's pregnant.
Yeah.
Now, some people don't think she really is pregnant. She says she's pregnant, and they went through great efforts earlier in season 7 to show her bedding down with her brother. And if you remember this scene, she made sure that one of the people working in the castle in King's Landing saw her and him together in bed. And so she's certainly trying to portray the plausibility of this pregnancy.
And when Tyrion comes to talk to her, when he says to her, "Oh, you're pregnant," it's because she's basically like sitting there patting her belly. She looks like me after being at a buffet. So if she wants other people to assume she's pregnant, to do it in front of Tyrion and be like, "Ooh, look I'm patting my belly here."
Yeah, right.
So I hadn't thought of that. So
there's a
up,
chance that she's not pregnant.
I'm curious if she's an early candidate to get whacked. Because, as season 7 ends, the wall's falling down and the party has arrived from the north. And now the Night King and everybody's heading south. And this double cross bit for me leaves a bad taste in my mouth as she acknowledges, and then there's the parting of ways as Jaime's like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
These things are coming and you're going to sit and let everyone else die, in which eventually they're going to be at our doorstep, and then they kind of part ways in that way. Like, I'm curious if she takes the ultimate L, like, early in season 8, whether it's episode 1 or 2, as somebody needs to compel those people to participate in the battle.
Without identifying a name, we will save that for the end when we play our fantasy game. In patented Game of Thrones fashion, like Ned Stark becomes incredibly lovable and popular in season 1. Then, boom, he's dead. That's it. It's over. Do we believe Sunday evening, Episode 1, Season 8, final season Game of Thrones, do we believe somebody quasi or super popular could die in this episode?
I think so.
Really?
You're going to set the tone of the season here, right?
100%.
I'll give you a couple of scenarios.
Save it for the end.
Okay.
Arya Stark next.
She kicks ass.
She spent season 7 murdering the Frey family at the beginning, which is just great did that
everybody.
feel? Oh God! For everybody that had to live through the Red Wedding to see it be reversed on them.
How about Walder seeing the finger in the pie?
Oh, the finger in the pie.
That was awesome.
That was great. And then she ends up and she bookends the season by murdering Littlefinger at the end.
She's killing everyone.
And she's working her list. There are a number of people, not just me, that have a theory that she could end up on the throne, although she doesn't seem to have any ambition to be on the throne. She's driven by her list and revenge.
Right. She's just like walking around now with basically a backpack full of faces.
But who's on the? That is true. Who's on the list? Who's the top person on her list?
Cersei.
Yeah,
but also the Hound.
I think the Hound is technically on the list.
She thinks the Hound's dead, by the way.
That's true, yeah.
That's a different story.
Well, I thought she and the Hound were cool with each other.
She almost killed the Hound once.
Yeah, but I thought he defended her for like the majority of a season.
Well, he defended her, but they got negative on a couple occasions on that journey.
Okay.
Right, and then she left him after the Brianna Tarth fight.
Oh, yeah, it was Brianna that almost killed him. So here's your scenario where Arya wins this. Cersei's on the throne, and it comes down to her, and in some faceless form as somebody else, not as herself, has to execute her.
This is brilliant.
And it could be, it looks like Jaime. But they don't tell us if it's really Jaime or it's Arya.
But she's short enough to look like Tyrion.
And they're intimate.
Well, maybe. And
they're having sex at the time.
Like, this is now you're getting into your fantasy.
Here we go.
Your fantasy scenario. So I think that's the scenario where Arya ends up on the throne, killing Cersei to get there, and effectively takes it by default, even if she doesn't want it.
Okay, we have 5 left. Jaime Lannister, Paul.
Everybody believes that he's going to kill Cersei, right?
Right.
I mean, we can't say it for sure, but that seems to be where everything's headed.
I like the Arya Cersei thing right at the end. Now that you mention it,
it's a good scenario. He had a fascinating season 7, and I thought one of the best storylines of season 7 because of how he changed and matured.
Yep.
So he gets sent. Cersei sends him off to steal the gold from the Tyrells, which he does. He nearly dies at the hands of Cersei's or Daenerys' dragons. So he's learned a valuable lesson. He goes back to Cersei and he's like, "We're effed.
Yeah.
This thing is badass, and we are in deep trouble." And she just dismisses him, right?
No.
Doesn't pay any attention to him. Then she's mad at him because he didn't give Lady Tyrell the painful long death that she wanted. Yeah. And we got one of the great scenes in the history of Game of Thrones, a show filled with great scenes.
Where she
the death scene between him and
they
Lady
just have
Tyrell.
a nice little chat as the clock ticks down on the poison and whatever.
God, it was great. What a fantastic scene. And he becomes more likable through that scene because he gave her a noble death, a dignified death.
And he's surprisingly not as pissed off as you would expect when she's like, "Yeah, I poisoned."
Jaime Lannister scenario. Season 1, he pushes Bran out of the window in the castle. And now Bran is relegated to the wheelchair. So maybe in season 8, Bran, in some way,
kills him.
Strikes back at Jaime Lannister.
Could be.
I mean, it's not preposterous.
I think we all agree. They've worked really hard. We all think Jaime's effectively flipped, right?
Right.
I think
he left the castle. He leaves Cersei after learning about the plan to double cross Tyrion. He met with Tyrion when he shouldn't have. All that stuff.
But also,
right?
because of some of the reasons that PA just said, and also just in general, if he just shows up there and says, "I'd like to join your team," isn't that sort of a tough sell at some point, particularly because
not with Tyrion?
Well, I guess he kind of knows at least what happened.
And if he's willing to help battle the White Walkers and go join the North, I think they'd take him.
Yeah.
Right? They need all the help.
Yeah, no diplomacy needed at that stage.
Help me with the last name. Sandor the Hound.
Clegane.
Charch.
The Hound maybe doesn't deserve to be among the top 11 characters left alive, but
I think he kicks ass.
He's a pretty big wild card and another redemption story. Deeply unlikable for the first 3 or 4 seasons, almost dies, comes back, and is turned into one of the good guys.
Yeah.
Ultimately, though, I think where his storyline is coming is the reunion with his brother, the Mountain, who burned his face. And I think we're going to get a big showdown between those two before this is over.
It's hard to imagine like a bigger, more brutal brawl than the one he already had with Bran. But I have to they're setting that up since basically day one when those two characters were introduced, and they have probably the most backstory of anyone in that he's been wanting to kill his brother basically since he got out and had a melted face from the fire. So the other thing is his brother's not technically even human at this point.
Yeah,
while the Hound is
quasi-human,
and he has red eyes.
He's like a great warrior.
What's the name of the guy? I think it's Corden, maybe the doctor that Cersei has enlisted that does all the work experiments. But the thing for me, I think first of all, I agree with the showdown. I think the Hound smashes the Mountain. I think that's, for me, it's a foregone conclusion. But of course, much to the surprise coming. I think he dies heroically in some manner, either saving Arya. Like, there's a former enemy that he goes down saving for kind of completing the circle of his reclamation project of his personality. That's how I view it.
100% chance, 90% chance. Whatever the big showdown is at the end, and whatever final act he has, whatever the final battle is, the Hound, it will involve fire. And his ability to, he'll have to overcome. He'll have to overcome his fear of fire.
And remember in the it was season 7 when they're stuck and they got all the White Walkers and stuff because they're trying to get the damn thing. He completely freezes with the fire, and then one of his buddies in that crew gets nicked by that giant animal bit. He overcomes it.
3 to go.
So brilliant.
Theon Greyjoy.
Swears allegiance to Yara at the beginning of season 7, but ultimately probably picked the wrong side. Euron ends up on top, and in the sea battle, he chickens out and jumps into the water, saving himself. He would have died anyway. It would have been a pointless death, but he does. Has that awkward reunion with Jon Snow at Dragonstone. And then, when he learns that Yara is going to be executed, he takes some of the remaining Ironborn to help go try to rescue her. If you want a candidate for perhaps a episode 1 death, him and or Yara, I think, are potential
having him
candidates.
die in like a semi-noble way to sort of redeem his character, because I mean, there's a lot to redeem at this point.
There is.
I don't care if he dies.
Yeah,
he's one of the most unlikable characters in this entire show.
But if he's able to stop one of his relatives from bringing a big army somewhere, or if he's able to at least like put a road bump in front of some aspect that's going to come with attack, I at least feel like they leave him on a note where it's like he's turned a 180 from being the worst character of all time.
Now, perhaps 2 of the more compelling characters in the history of Game of Thrones. Let's begin with Bran Stark.
I don't know if you mean that ironically or not. I find Bran to be the least interesting of the major characters.
Well, when I say compelling, it's from a storyline speculative standpoint where it popped online and even, those of us chatting for a while that he may be the Night King.
There are people who think he's the Night King.
Right, so that's compelling.
But hold on, though.
You have the tree with the red leaves. You have the three-eyed raven bit, and he can see the past, the current, the future. I mean, that's compelling.
Here's the whole bit with Bran being the Night King, I think is stupid, because there's an actual scene where I think they're the children of the forest.
Right.
They take a guy and make him the Night King.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's that connection? His ability to see it or perceive it?
Good point.
See,
Agreed.
what you're saying about him being compelling, I agree, but it's compelling from the standpoint of what's his ultimate worth?
That's what I mean.
What situations is he affecting?
Well,
I don't think he's the Night King.
You know what's compelling? We all like betting, right?
Yeah.
If this were the Game of Thrones version of My Guys in the Cornfields, the first thing I would have pointed out is in Las Vegas, where you can bet who assumes the Iron Throne, Bran Stark is favored.
Yeah, which I don't see it.
I don't see it either.
His whole character device has been to stitch together narratives from the past.
He's like a human exposition machine, basically.
He's a human.
To say, like,
right.
the viewers probably don't know what's happening or who the parentage of this person is, so let me just have a flashback here.
Exactly.
Which has a lot of value.
Yeah.
Right. Doesn't make him the most charismatic character of all time.
Bingo.
Okay.
Bingo. And by the way, the most wooden actor on the show.
Yeah.
For sure.
I feel like they cast...
But by design.
I feel like they cast him as a little kid.
He's traumatized, man. I mean, he saw the incest, got pushed out of the window. That's true. Had to live in the wheelchair.
A kid trying to live dreams.
He
had pushed out of the window.
Didn't Gleeman have to pick him up and run like 40 miles to get away from the zombies or something?
Think of that. That could have been me.
Yeah, that's his only work to the show right now is he's getting people killed. And there was that cool like wormhole bit where Hodor, was once able to talk, and then he has like that epileptic type seizure, and then all he says is Odor, and then years later, seasons later, you see him holding that door from the walkers so they can get away. His worth to the show, I like it, is more like speeding up storylines and bringing them together. So I don't think he's going to be on the throne at all.
That's the voice of Eric Nordquist, part of Men of the North, the Game of Thrones podcast that originates in Minnesota at FM 100.3 KFAN. Eric, your Twitter handle is?
At Eric Nordo, KFAN.
One of the analysts, Paul Charchian, at Paul Charchian. Another analyst, the Thrones techie, Aaron Gleeman, at Aaron Gleeman. And I'm Paul Allen. To finalize the top 11 characters left alive, and summarize their lots in life and analyze their potential to end up on the throne, is the Night King? Charch?
He confronts Jon Snow on that patch of ice and successfully turns one of the dragons into undead dragon, lich zombie.
And previous to that, he turned the wildlings, which Jon saw.
Yes. And, his army continues south, and then at the end of season 7, punches a hole in the wall, and it's game on, right? So, now it's officially happened. We've been waiting for 7 seasons. We get the big payoff at the end.
What an unbelievable finish to season 7.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. It salvaged some of the things that I didn't love about season 7.
Yeah.
The question I have for you guys about the Night King: do you believe he is relevant in the final episode, or we know there's going to be a massive battle. The media reports are they spent 11 weeks. Almost 3 months filming the battle scene between the White Walkers of the North and the armies of the North
of
and the
the
South.
living
of the living.
Yeah,
right?
I just read an interview with the 2 creators of it, and they said they think it's the longest continuous battle scene in the history of anything. Basically.
Yeah,
my God! I'm so excited.
So that's got to be
the
a
Battle of the
half-hour
Bastards
plus.
was like 45 minutes or something. So
I get tired walking up flights of stairs, but in this time period of this show, these guys are wielding steel swords for what looks like hours.
Yeah. Right. And they might not be steel, but
they're barely breaking a sweat.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm Samuel Tarley. Now I just changed it. I'm the fat guy in this, this scenario.
So, we know this big battle's coming.
Right.
But that's not the end of this, right? The whole thing with Cersei is she's going to let that battle happen, have whichever side is weakened and survived at the end, she's going to mop up and she's going to rule. I think the Night King storyline will be resolved, perhaps halfway through this thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And because I'm just my speculation. I don't think he's really going to be in play down to the bitter end to try to get the
If
throne.
they don't have the Night King and his massive army alive to the end and either winning or losing, that would shock me.
And which is possible.
I feel like you're sort of saying it's so obviously set up that the last episode will be that battle, and then the last scene somebody will defeat him, or Jon Snow stabs him with some Dragonstone, or whatever.
I don't think it's going to go that way.
But you think it's or Dragonglass? It's too obvious.
Yeah.
Which maybe, but the other thing is Cersei's whole plan of whoever's weakened will take on. But here's the thing: if the Night King wins that first initial battle,
which he may,
they're not weakened; they're actually stronger because all the dead people they killed. Right?
Yeah. She doesn't get that. She doesn't understand that, right? Because this whole thing's lost on her. She just
she hasn't been on Reddit reading all the threads about what actually happened.
She really needs to.
Now, if it's truly about wrapping up and putting somebody on that throne, and it's not the Night King, which I do not think it'll be the Night King. As a character, he's nothing. He's just this ominous force.
Right.
And so for me, I'm thinking in a similar vein to what you're saying, from the good defeats evil, and now the show, maybe it's the last episode to wrap that up, where it's now humans back in charge of their own universe. How is that reconciled in the end? So,
but when does good ever defeat evil in the Game of Thrones?
Yeah, they do a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
It's
we're just used to it. Our Hollywood endings is we're 95% good versus evil.
We're so
in Game of Thrones,
yeah.
It's almost even.
But also the level of balls it would take if you're the 2 guys running Game of Thrones, to be we're truly going to end it where just all the living people are dead.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be an amazing cinematic ending.
And Jon Snow is just another one.
Right.
One of a million.
They
walkers.
could make that incredible, but then you got to spend the next 50 years of your life with people going, how could you have ended it like that?
Yeah. Okay. Now, Paul Charchian at Paul Charchian. The fantasy game you would like to play. How does it work?
All right. And, I encourage people to play along with this because it's very easy. Before every episode, including this show, we will each pick one character to add to your roster. You could pick the same ones that I pick, right? And we'll reveal them simultaneously. And the idea is you're trying to pick whoever's going to be alive the longest. Every episode that they're alive, you get 100 points. Times the number of episodes they've been alive.
Okay.
So, hypothetically,
can we change weekly?
you're going to add another person every week.
But you have to retain the initial person.
You retain the initial person, and you add a new one every single week. But this is an important one because this person can run the full 6 episodes.
This is your number one pick.
So if this person stays alive through the whole thing, they'll earn 100 points this week, 200 next week, 300 the week after that, 400 the week after that, 500, then 600.
Yeah.
Okay, so we reveal at the same time?
Reveal at the same time.
Because now that you laid it out, and if one of you guys takes the Night King, cool. But like when you laid this out, I was going to go Night King because I'm like, no way in episode 1 is Night King dead.
Right.
Then I was going to do somebody else the next one. Well, now the way you laid it out for points week after week, I'm changing.
Yeah, you want to know, you're trying to pick right now who's going to be alive
You're basically
at the end.
trying to reverse engineer what will happen in episode 6.
Nordo, you'll score this?
I can score this.
I can score it too.
I mean,
Either way,
very
it's
simple
easy.
to keep track
Here we go.
Hold on. Wait, now I want you to do this. Either put it maybe 2 initials
we'll
on
just
your
say
phone.
it at the same time.
Okay. All
Okay.
Right. It's audio. We could do that.
Yeah.
Same time. It's going to go 3-2 now, and then we say, okay? 3-2 now. Arya Stark. Charchian, what'd you say?
I said Tyrion.
I said Jon Snow.
I said Arya.
I said Daenerys. There.
I love it. We
all
got
picked
4 different ones.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
What a great game this is.
All right.
Okay.
I like that.
That's
Okay.
great.
Now, in closing, Men of the North, podcast number 1 into episode 1, season 8, Game of Thrones, coming up this Sunday. Nordo, Charch, Thrones Techie, Aaron Gleeman, and I'm Paul Allen. Some free-flowing conversation on scenarios that have intrigued you through the first 7 seasons that potentially could be in play not only this Sunday, but through season 8. Just things that jump out at you. For instance, what happens now with, the Night King has a dragon. Okay, that's obviously a major, major game changer. Khaleesi has 2. So we need to be reminded Daenerys still has 2 dragons compared to 1 for the Night King. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to, when it's like a lot of people when I read stuff, they're calling the dead White Walkers. Well, it's to my belief there truly only are 8, 9, or 10 White Walkers. They're the ones with the super deep blue eyes that have been made White Walkers strictly by the Night King. The rest are whites. Okay, we can call them white zombies or whatever.
Right.
He has 100,000 of them. They can be killed, correct me if I'm wrong here, by fire and by dragon glass. So I think those
I believe that's the case.
That's all we know so far.
That's all we know.
Or if you kill the person who turned them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we've seen that.
Right.
Yeah, like we kill 1 and 50 go down.
Right.
Okay, so the dragon punching the hole in the wall, and them walking through the area with those wildlings that are like 90 to 100 feet tall, those massive creatures. This is unbelievable. I don't expect episode 1 there to be major zombie living terrorism or tumult. I think it'll build up, but I can't wait for some scenes where they meet and we start to settle the bet.
I mean, the thing about them having the 1 dragon, like you said, they're still facing somebody who has 2 dragons. But are we even certain, how would you kill a White Walker dragon at this point?
Well, it flame, right?
But
so
isn't a dragon sort of impervious to fire anyway because they spit fire?
I don't know.
Yeah, so my question is 2 versus 1, you would side with the 2.
Yeah.
But if
how do
the
you kill
1
If
isn't
flame
able
won't
to
kill it.
Right.
And does dragon glass kill a dragon?
Like what?
I don't know.
What size of sword of dragon glass would you require to kill?
Yeah,
It's got to be like.
What if it's Cersei? If you remember, they go down into the basement leading up to where the dragon nearly kills Jaime, and they have that massive spear shooter catapult.
that Bran tried to shoot
the
at.
massive crossbow bit. But they
put
have
dragon glass in that.
on it.
Yeah, that could be
that's
it.
not
So
a
I mean,
bad
what if the angle ultimately is episode 1 goes and maybe Cersei feels the heat, change of heart, and now it's like all hands on deck, and we get the dragon glass crossbow bit going on.
Might need it. Let me give you 3 just loose storylines.
Yeah.
Sam Tarly is not finished. He's going to play a significant role in
love
this
him.
yet. I do too. He's great.
He's affable.
Very much. Who doesn't like him, right?
His father.
So your thoughts on Sam's role to play in the remaining episodes?
And by the way, Gilly, who just randomly reads stuff that she doesn't even realize what she's reading.
Yeah, right.
And he's like, "Oh, that changes the entire."
That changes everything.
So you want us to prognosticate
Yeah, any thoughts on Sam's role in this final season?
I don't. You guys?
They're definitely setting him up to sort of crack some sort of code, basically.
Yes.
That's the thing. It's his wisdom, ultimately, that is his biggest contribution.
Next.
That will end up happening. Does Tormund Giantsbane and Brienne of Tarth hook up? God, yes. I don't want to see it, but I want it to happen.
I kind of want to see it.
I've always felt she and Bran have something for each other. In a strange way.
They might all be kind of barking up the wrong tree, I think, in that.
Maybe.
But he might be into it enough.
Matters?
Yeah, that's true. I guess.
See, I would bet.
She might get it on with the Night King.
Yeah.
Well, Tormund's going to die. I think there's no doubt.
But there's the bitterness, smug, sarcastic nature. I would much rather cut your head off than spend 5 minutes with you vibe that Bran and Brienne have. Mm-hmm. They're going to make beautiful babies.
And finally?
There's about 6 people that know that Gendry Baratheon is alive, who he is.
Who is Gendry Baratheon?
He's the bastard son of Robert Baratheon, and he worked in the
sword maker.
He was the sword maker in season 7.
Oh, I got it.
And
technically,
Sir Davos comes in, and
is he an heir?
And he's an heir to the throne.
Well,
the Baratheon throne.
They don't know for sure who his mom is, but there's some theories that his mom was Cersei. But I don't really see how that works from a sort of.
I don't think so.
But she was married to him.
Yeah. But everybody know if they had a kid.
Right. Here's where I feel like that's going, because they kept him in the background for a lot of it. But they clearly brought him back for something. He's an extra sort of name to join the kind of crew, like Ocean's 11 style. But I also feel like the fact that they continually showed him as a weapons maker, that when it comes time to start putting together the dragon glass and making swords, I feel like he's going to play a big part in that.
Jorah Mormont has been through a lot.
Yes.
He's been through a lot. He was Khaleesi's initial advisor. Yep. He's back in her camp, and I just cannot get over, from an aesthetic standpoint, from episodes from days gone by, when he advised Daenerys, him saying, Khaleesi. And the way he says Khaleesi.
The voice is unbelievable.
Khaleesi. Oh, it's just so sexy.
So is he?
I want him to last.
That son of a bitch is one of my favorites in the whole thing.
We're rooting for him for sure. But his goal is to ultimately win the heart of Khaleesi. It ain't happening.
Anything in closing, boys?
Well, are we making any sort of big scale, big picture prediction, or are we leaving that till after we start to see it?
I'm just excited, man. There are so many storylines.
I agree.
And I mentioned it to you. It feels like this is going to be a frenetic pace where things are going to happen early and often. Because whether it's Euron, whether it's, you mentioned, Podrick and Davos and all these guys, Varys, where all these different angles are coming in, we still forget, is it Meereen, where they left the islands to bring the Dothraki and the Unsullied to Castle Rock or to Dragonstone.
Yeah.
There's still an entire civilization. There's so many different storylines that I think is a failure of this show, as mammoth as it is, if they don't do their best to tie some of that up, which means in 6 episodes they got a lot of things to do.
What about the sneaky angle that was seen at the end of season 7? Can't remember the guy's name, but it was shortly after they unveiled the White. Cersei saw the White, and then your guy who sails, what's his name? Euron.
He's like, I'm out of here.
He's like, I'm out.
Gotta go.
But he also was informed the walkers can't swim. Okay, I think that's sneaky when it comes to trying to eliminate them en masse. Whatever happened to the green stuff that was in the water that kills people?
Oh, the wildfire?
Wildfire.
Right.
But also,
emphasis on the word fire in wildfire, and they can't swim.
You got to get them onto the water.
But are we sure?
Well, they're stupid, though. Of course, they'll walk into it if you lead them.
It depends, because that's where
if you lead a white to water, but you can't make them swim. Is that what you're saying?
Right. But that also is the difference between
Jack helped you off a horse anyway.
The zombie versus the White Walker is we saw once the first dragon dies, they all team up and they're dragging it out of the water. They're working together. Are we sure that they're not smart enough to get on a boat?
Who, the walkers?
Yeah.
Oh, hell no.
If they're able to drag
I'm walking dead
to attach chains to a dragon and drag them out.
No, one of the Night King guys could get them on a boat.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that's one of the White Walkers.
But what about the dragon?
And they're smart.
Euron and his cute little armada are chilling out in the ocean, just feet up, drinking all the ale. But then that
bunch of whores from the brothel
shows up and just drops it, because the dragon doesn't care about the water.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how Euron meets his.
Yeah, if he's not set up to have a gruesome, laughable death, they'll never that's the least likable. There's no redeeming quality of Euron.
No.
He looks like Joshua Jackson, which is annoying in itself.
Yeah, a little bit.
So I kind of agree with Nordo where they're going to set him up to just basically burn to a crisp somewhere.
Boys, great job. Can't wait for episode 1, season 8, Game of Thrones. To everybody who took time to listen to Men of the North, this will take place weekly during season 8. Via Game of Thrones. You can learn more about it by listening to my radio show, the 9 to Noon radio show at FM 100.3, KFAN, KFAN.com, or by downloading the free iHeartRadio app, or via our Twitter feeds. Eric's is at Eric Nordo, KFAN, at Eric Nordo, KFAN. Paul's is at Paul Charchian. The Thrones Techie is at Aaron Gleeman, and yours truly, Paul Allen, at PA on the mic. Thank you very much for listening to Men of the North, of the North, of the North, of the North, of the North.